everybody, and welcome back to the Hangout Spot where you already know it's Real Talk Sports Talk, live from my man cave. It's your boy Johnny, and let's talk boxing because this weekend we had a lot going on. Another incredible weekend of boxing. Next week we have another one with Canelo and Munguia. We'll be doing a preview video later on this week, so make sure you're along for the ride. But this weekend personally was a big one for me because it was the first time that I actually got to cover a live fight as a member of the media. And I want to give a big shout out to my boy X at Four Corners Boxing for hooking me up with the connect, man. Much love. In fact, much love to all my brothers from Four Corners Boxing. If you have not tuned in and subscribed to their channel, make sure you do that. Every Wednesday, they put out a good podcast, 9 p.m., where they talk that boxing, different topics around the world of boxing. It isn't just upcoming fights and recent fights. I mean, they discuss it all. So if you haven't, make sure you give them a like and subscribe. Those are my brothers. Appreciate you guys. But this Friday, MVP Prospects card, I was direct and live again on Media Row. I had an absolute blast. This was a prospect card. So a lot of good young talent, up-and-coming talent. And then the main event was 154 pounds, Yoenis Tellez, the young guy, the young up-and-coming prospect Cuban guy. He was going up against undefeated Joseph Jackson. He ends up winning that fight by unanimous decision. And he looked good in the fight. I mean, he showed a lot of versatility, a lot of power, especially in the beginning. He came out very, very fast. In fact, he knocked down Joseph Jackson in the second round with a vicious left hook. And, you know, it looked like he was about to finish him. He pounded on him for the rest of the round. Joseph Jackson obviously made it to the bell, and then he composed himself. And he fought a little bit smarter the rest of the way. But at the end of the day, this was a clear-cut victory for Tellez, another stepping stone in the right direction for this young prospect. And it'd be interesting to see where his career goes from here, because if he continues to look good and continues to impress and show that versatility of skills and power like he did on Friday night, who knows, maybe there could be a potential fight between him and Xander Zayas at 154 pounds. That would be very, very interesting. But make no mistake about it, the fight of the night, as expected, was the co-main event between Tony Aguilar and Alexander Rios. This was actually a rematch from a fight that they had back in October in Caribbean Real when Amanda Serrano was headlining. I was actually there for that fight live, and that first one was action-packed from start to finish. Aguilar won that fight by majority decision. This was the rematch, and this was basically a continuation of the first fight, man. These two guys, they went at it. Tony Aguilar is a Mexican, and right behind me, you know, behind press row, there was a big Mexican crowd cheering for him. They were live, man. Trust me when I tell you. And rightfully so. It was a great fight. Again, another action-packed fight. These two make for some really good fights. In the phone booth, they threw right hands, overhands, body shots. I mean, they throw everything at each other but the kitchen sink. But Tony Aguilar, he does enough. He wins by unanimous decision, and his future is very, very bright. He remains undefeated. He's going to be a major problem and a fighter that you're going to want to watch going forward because he's entertaining. He's going to go out there. He's going to put on a show. He's going to come to fight. The whole card in itself showed me that boxing is in a very good place with a lot of these young guys up and coming, especially these two guys from Puerto Rico that really stood out to me. You had Alexis Chaparro. He was making his pro debut fighting on Amanda Serrano's promotion company, and he is now 1-0 with one knockout. Stopped his first ever pro opponent in the first round, again with another vicious body shot. And this kid, he's the real deal, man. He's from Ridgewood, Queens, originally from Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, and I happened to do a post-fight interview reaction with him. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go to the channel and check it out as well. He's charismatic, he's good looking, he's going to be marketable, you know, and he packs a mean punch. So it will be very, very interesting to see where this kid's career goes. You also had another young, sensational Puerto Rican top prospect, Jean-Paul Rivera. He looked amazing. He was fighting against an undefeated fighter, and he showed a lot of explosiveness with a very strong power jab. He was fast. He had good footwork, good technique, great defense and head movement. I mean, this kid is going to be a severe problem. You know, these two guys, you know, they're going to be the future of boxing. You also had another spectacular young talent, Xavier X-Man Bocanegra. If you haven't seen him, make sure you check him out as well. He was fighting a tough guy ends up going the full 4 rounds, but he wins easily and by unanimous decision. Again, quickness, speed, good jab, great technique. As these kids continue to progress and get better, and if they stay in the gym honing their craft, the sky's the limit. I see future world championships in all 3 of these kids. They just got to keep their head focused and keep moving in the right direction. So, I mean, altogether, these cards are amazing to go to, especially if you're going to cover them, because I was backstage, while these guys were getting their hands wrapped, while they were warming up. After the fight, I was able to talk to them, talk to some of their trainers. I mean, you had Danier Perez, who is another up-and-coming heavyweight, a Cuban heavyweight. He is trained by the great Bob Santos. He also won in the first round by stoppage. So a lot of good young talent. A great night. And like I was saying before, these are the type of cards that you go to where you're going to see top talent. These guys are hungry, man. They're trying to make a name for themselves. And who knows? The reason why I like going to these events is that you probably can see the next future pay-per-view star. You don't know. So it was a great night. I had an absolute blast. I can't wait to do it again. And then yesterday, we had the DAZN card that headlined with Jose Ramirez against Francis Bartolome, former world champion. Jose Ramirez making his comeback. He had not fought in quite some time. And then in the co-main event, you have Virgil Ortiz Jr., the knockout artist, a guy who has knocked out every single one of his opponents. He was facing Thomas Delorme at 154 pounds. And if you saw my video from a few days ago, the Riyadh fight season card was announced, the first U.S. card announced by His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh and Eddie Hearn. That's going to be on August 3rd in Los Angeles. And it was rumored, well, not rumored, it was actually spoken about that if Virgil Ortiz won this fight on Saturday, that he would be fighting against Tim Tszyu at 154 pounds on that card. That card is absolutely insane. We'll get into that in a second. But, again, was Virgil Ortiz going to win? Well, guess what? There were no surprises here. I mean, he came out guns blazing. He stops Thomas Delorme in the first round with a vicious, well-placed body shot. And you knew once Delorme went down, his face was just full of pain. He was not going to be able to get up. And that's what a well-placed body shot does, man. It just sucks the life out of you, and there's no way on earth you're going to be able to get up. It was an impressive punch. And Virgil Ortiz Jr. actually said it himself when he was in the locker room after the fight, that he didn't really even throw it that hard. He just threw it at the perfect shot. And he knew once he landed it, he heard Delorme grunt. And as soon as he went down, he knew he wasn't going to get up. So Virgil Ortiz now, again, undefeated, has knocked out every single opponent he's faced. And now he's facing an absolute beast in Tim Tszyu. I cannot wait for that fight. As far as the main event, Jose Ramirez wins by unanimous decision by Francis Bartolome. And it was more because he was the busier guy. I mean, he did do some good work in the body, stayed busy, stood composed, because there were a few times in that fight where he was hurt. I got to give it to Bartolome. I mean, he's a former world champion. He's very, very crafty, and he picks and chooses his shots. And if a fighter makes a mistake, he's going to be able to land his left hand. And I got to tell you, Ramirez was eating a lot of left hands. There was one point in the fight, early part in the fight, where Ramirez was hurt. And, Bartolome was putting the pressure on. And you got the sense, could this be an upset? Because nobody saw Bartolome winning this fight. But, Ramirez kept his composure. Again, he was the busier guy, did some good body work, and ended up winning by decision. And now he wants to put himself in line for a title at 140. Ramirez is always going to be a threat. He's a very, very good fighter. But one thing that I saw in this fight was that he can be chin checked. The chin is a little suspect. He can be hurt, by a straight left. I mean, he was eating those lefts all day by Bartolome. And Bartolome later on in the fight just stopped throwing, volume of punches as well. But either way, give Ramirez credit. He composed himself. He won the fight. He's going to obviously try to push himself in line for a title fight. But realistically, I mean, when he starts facing the big guys, the big punching guys, I mean, we saw what Josh Taylor did to him. I mean, Josh Taylor put him down a couple of times in that fight and beat him, to take his title. And Josh Taylor isn't the biggest of punchers, isn't the biggest of punchers. So what's going to happen when Ramirez faces the likes of Teofimo Lopez, who can punch? Let's say he faces Ryan Garcia, who knows? Subriel Matias at 140. I mean, all these guys can blast. I really don't see how Ramirez will beat any of those guys because, although he does stay busy, I don't think that he has any type of power to keep these guys off of him. And contrary, these guys have the power to put him out with one shot. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. So all in all, a very, very good weekend of boxing. And then last week, I put out a video because the Riyadh season card was announced with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh and Eddie Hearn, who are going to be promoting it. This is going to be the first Riyadh fight card in the United States. It's on August 3rd in Los Angeles. From top to bottom, this is probably one of the best fight cards I've ever seen put together. And trust me, and if there was a fight card that was put together as good as this one, it's got to be something back in the 80s that maybe Don King put together, because we know Don King used to put together some really, really good fight cards. But, I don't remember a card that, every single fight, can either be a main event or a co-main event on a separate card. And as we get closer to that fight card, that's again at the beginning of August, we'll start to analyze the fights a little bit deeper. But on the surface, the main event will be Terence Crawford, as expected, for the 154 WBA title. He's going to be facing title holder Israel Madrimov. That, I think, is going to be a very, very good fight. A lot of people, because Terence Crawford is the best fighter pound for pound, are kind of writing Madrimov off. But take a look at his tape, man. The guy can scrap, man. He can move, he can punch. I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. And let's not forget, he's the natural 154-pounder with Terence Crawford moving up in weight. Now, when they did face off, it looked like Crawford was, the same size. In fact, I kind of saw Crawford as just slightly bigger. So I don't think size will be an advantage. That's not, that's not why I say it. But let's not forget, this kid is a natural 154-pounder that punches like a 154-pounder. So it'll be interesting to see how this matchup goes. And then again, like I said, you have Tim Tszyu against Virgil Ortiz Jr. That's going to be absolutely insane. You got Andy Ruiz making his comeback. He hasn't fought in quite some time in heavyweight. He's going to be facing Jarrell Big Baby Miller. That's going to be, a very exciting fight. You have David Morrell, he's super middleweight. He'll be fighting on that card. You have, Cuban Olympian, Andy Cruz. He'll be fighting, on that card as well. And let's not forget, you have Jose Rayo Valenzuela against Isaac Pitbull Cruz. That fight is going to be insane, man. Anytime that you see Isaac Cruz in a fight, you're going to be entertained. And Rayo Valenzuela is coming off a very impressive knockout victory over Chris Colbert, a guy who had beat him. That was the rematch, and he got his back. So that's going to be interesting, man. That whole fight card, absolutely insane. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section, what you thought about this weekend's fights and what you anticipate next week going into the Canelo Munguia fight. I'll be doing a video this week with a special guest to go over the Canelo Munguia fight. So make sure you tune in and you're along for the ride. And as always, if you're new to watching my videos, don't know what you're waiting for, man. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. You know how we do here at the Hangout Spot. Make sure you're along for the ride. And as always, I appreciate the love and support. This is your boy Johnny signing out from the Hangout Spot, and I'll talk to everybody soon.